only 100 odd pages, I think. Short text. Originally in Kannada, but translation into English. So one of the great things that has happened in the past, couple of decades, is that the translation industry has really, developed. Um, a lot of it is thanks to, big publishing houses with lots of foreign capital, right? So they can actually afford to commission translations and to bring out these volumes. But earlier it used to be very, very difficult to find a good quality translation. And a lot of really great literature in a lot of our languages was not, could not be accessed by large numbers of Indians as well as non-Indians. But that is now changing, even though much needs to be done. There's still a lot more translation that should be taking place. So this is a happy example of of that happening, where we wouldn't have been able to access this wonderful text if it had not been for for this very nice translation, which really brings out the spirit of the text, its economy, its a little bit like the Manto story we were reading last week, though not entirely, of course. That is so much that is really grim. But here too, there is that understatement. There is that avoidance of certain topics. Yeah. So let's just get into it, and hopefully let's see how the discussion goes today. But we may not need more than maybe one more class to finish discussing this. By the way, you'll also be informed on email, but the Saturday class, Saturday is working as something else, Monday or Thursday. So the Saturday class will not happen because I can't be here on Saturday, but your tutorial will happen. Okay, and it will take place in the lecture slot. Okay, in this room. So 5 o'clock, just come as usual, but that day you will be free at 6. Okay, you just have the ticket. Okay, so this is it's a very contemporary novel. I mean, you would have got that from reading it as well. Okay, can all the conversations now please stop? You can resume them after the class is over, but for now, since you're here, make it worth your while. So 2015 is when this novel came out, right? So it hasn't even been a decade. So it's very, very sort of very contemporary. It's talking about our moment, our time. So because we like to think of texts as rooted in a particular time, in a particular place, let's just get that out of the way. Where is this novel located?
Bangalore.
Bangalore. It's located in Bangalore. It's located in contemporary Bangalore. It's about this urban, close-knit family. Yeah. And some questions that you might that you would have expected to have been addressed in another kind of work, for instance, a less contemporary work that is not urban. One of those questions would have been, what about the rest of this family? Where is the extended family? When did these people come to Bangalore? Right? Where is their home? Because typically in India with sort of rural backgrounds or provincial backgrounds, you have a village, right? You have your gaon, the place you hail from, right? Even today, that's the question a lot of people ask, right? Where do you hail from? Where's your family, right? And by family, not just the nuclear family you're living with, not just your parents, but the extended family. Do we get any information about that in this novel? But it just tells us that, you know, the father was married here, but that's about it. No, it doesn't go beyond. It doesn't go beyond that generation. Where are the grandparents? There's no mention of them. Extended family, cousins, uncles, aunts, nothing, right? So it's setting, you know, we say Bangalore, but it's also a very, it's urban in a more generic sense, right? Because it is in an urban setting that one is kind of free of one's past and one's past connections. So at some level, this is a family that is also rootless. No, I mean beyond their immediate sort of 4 or 5 members, there doesn't seem to be any connection, any link with any kind of larger family, right? So it's not literally a nuclear family, but it certainly functions very much like a nuclear family, right? So I mean that's this seeming lack of moorings, no, in a larger community is a very urban sort of phenomenon. So you remember when they move to their new house, and they say goodbye to their neighbors, and the neighbors say, don't forget us, keep coming to meet us. But it's made quite clear that all connections with that neighborhood are broken, right? Once they move to this bigger, posher neighborhood, they are not anymore in touch with their old neighbors, people who they have lived with practically all their lives. So when we are looking at the setting, the place, yes, it is Bangalore, but it is also very peculiarly urban, right? It defines the condition of contemporary urban life, right? A sense pretty much of being on your own, a sense of disconnection from a larger familial social network. How do you think that would impact one's personality or one's behavior? You know, not this sense of not having to be answerable to a larger set of people.
Be more independent.
It would make you more independent. It would make you more independent. It would give you a greater freedom, certainly. It can also make you a little too independent, right? This lack of this. Sorry.
What do you mean by too independent?
I mean, what happens to this family? Right? This disconnectedness from any sort of, a cultural or moral framework, right? Which defines, which guides your actions. Here there seems to be a detachment from that, right? Where they are really kind of in free fall. Emotionally and in their behavior. So so the place urban in a very defining way, right? So this is not just a story that happens to be set in Bangalore. It could also have been set in Ranchi or wherever. No, this is very much a story that only makes sense when you think about it in an urban setting. 2 is the time, at the time at which it is set. So we know it's written in 2015. He moves back and forth, the narrator moves back and forth, talks about his childhood and talks about the present. Now there's a huge difference between his childhood and his present. Yes? So what can you guess roughly? What is the time frame? Could we say that when he talks about his childhood, he is talking about a childhood in the 1980s, perhaps, certainly pre-liberalization, right? 80s, early 90s, possibly, which was a different world. We've talked about it a few times in the classroom as well, right? It's a different kind of relationship to things, to possessions, to money. There is a sense of not wanting too much. Not wanting too much precisely because there is not that much to want anyway. Right? While with the 21st century, late 90s onwards, what changes drastically is the sheer inundation, the flooding of the markets with goods, with things of all kinds, right? Consumer goods. And suddenly choice becomes paramount. There is so much to choose from. So this abundance of wealth, of material goods, is a very, very big change from the 70s and 80s and before that. So temporally, right, in terms of where this novel is situated, it sort of seems to span this period from kind of pre-liberalization to a new kind of economy, right? A new world. And this new world now also brings with it an entirely sort of new set of relationships, or maybe not a new set of relationships, but older relationships begin to get defined in new ways, right? So the first change that happens, of course, is in who becomes the head of the family. It should be the father. He's the older brother, and it used to be the father because he was the only earning member, right? But that equation gets transformed. The most important person in the family now is the person who provides, and it is now the uncle. Yes. So how the sort of historical moment you are situated in, again, it's not just a question of individual life being lived in this historical period, right? They sort of define each other, right? The time in which you live defines you. It defines the way you live in a crucial way, right? So you would have been an entirely different person had you been born 20 years earlier than you did, or 20 years later than you did, right? So this very sort of very tight kind of connection between the private and the public, between the personal and the political, the personal and the socio-economic. It's not a simple thing of just kind of placing the individual in a larger context. Right? The two shape each other. The context shapes the individual. So we see quite a bit of that as well in this novel. Now, having said this, having noted that it is set in a very definite place and a very definite time. Do you also get a sense that there is uh, a universal kind of quality to it, a timeless kind of quality to it, as well as being very sort of very firmly rooted in its moment and in its place? Is there also a sense in which this is a story that anyone can relate to? Because these are, I mean, they seem to be two contradictory things, no? Is it something that can only happen in this moment, at this time, in this place? Or is there something about this story that is, in a sense, that is timeless? So here the question to ask then is, what is the story really about? I mean, if you just had to give one word, in one word, what do you think? What is the key word? What is the story about? Change? Okay.
Family. Family.
Family? Okay. Any other thoughts? Change, family. Women. How women fit into the family. The role of women in a family unit. But yes, I sort of feel overwhelmingly that this is a novel that is really about family. It's about something that is so kind of so fundamental, right? As the family unit, and a great deal of what happens in this novel, a great deal of what the novel talks about, is really something that most people from most places could relate. Would you like to define it a little further? What about the family is this about? What specific aspects of the family? Again, one word. What strikes you, most strongly about this family, about how the family as a unit is maintained? Love? What do you think? Tell me, do you think it's love? Because generally that's how we think about families, no? That it's all about love. It's all about loving your parents, loving each other. Is that the sense you get? Is this a loving family?
It's not a loving family, but it is a family that in which people stand by each other.
So yes, it's a family where people, they really guard the boundaries of the family. But I mean, to me, that is the most obvious thing about this family. Do you see violence in this book?
Verbally.
Verbal, in terms of behavior. Look at the second chapter. Yes, this woman in, and the way in which he is treated by the family. So violence, I mean violence not just in actual kind of terms of marpeat, but violence as an attitude, right? This very kind of strong guarding of boundaries, right? The maintenance of a boundary between the outside and the inside. What is this kind of what is the image that is used to hint at this boundary? Look at your text. Each of the sections. When one section ends and another begins, what is the division between sections in the text?
Ants.
Ants. There's an ant, no? At the end of every section. And what are these ants? Where do they come in?
There was like an ant infestation in their house, something like that. And the Amma, she does something about it.
And a lot of time is spent in the narrative to describe the measures that were taken to get the ants out. And it's like, the family rallying together to keep an intruder out. Right? And it's as if the same, the same kind of coming together is replicated at various moments. Uncle's girlfriend, the sister's, eventually the sister's husband, right, if you've got to that part, and finally also the narrator's wife. So yeah, please read the text. It's it's really no fun just being faced by a lot of blank faces, and I'm sure it can't be fun for you either. So just sort of do the basic work. Read the text. You've had enough time. You had more than a week to do it. So the idea of the outsider, the idea of the boundary, the idea that the family's the family's kind of bond is maintained in relation to the outside. Right? So they become a close-knit family only when there is a threat to them. Right? So the threat of the outsider and the violence that the family is capable of enacting is a constant sort of motif in this novel. Yes? Now that violence takes many forms, but there is a readiness to display violence, right, for the maintenance of the family. So what this is really asking us to think about is our understanding of the family as a unit, and what keeps it together. What are these bonds that keep a family, that maintain a family? How deeply is violence a part of the family structure? And so it seems like this very effortlessly simple novel. It's written so simply. It's such a breeze. You can just you just pick it up and it feels like you're not even reading. It's so smooth. But the underlying questions, the underlying issues that it is raising for us to think about are quite grim ones. Yeah, and so idea of control, the idea of coercion, the idea of violence, yeah, the strict maintenance of borders, of boundaries, right, between the family and the outside. Right? All of that is, we are asked to think about. So basically, it's a sort of unpacking, a deconstruction, if you like, of the family, of the familial unit. Right? What is it? What is it that makes it a unit? What is it based on? The sort of immediate answer would be love, respect, duty, affection, whatever else. Right? But is there? So we are being asked to rethink that, right? To reconsider that. So we start with the narrator. This is a story that's told by a first person narrator, and it opens in a very specific setting, the coffee house. It's an important kind of landmark, an important institution in Bangalore, if you've been. It begins with the narrator not, the first chapter is really just kind of, it seems to be talking about all kinds of things. He only really starts talking about, he really only gets into the actual story of his family from the second chapter onwards. Right? And he gets into it, he kind of chooses to begin at this very, from this very ugly moment. Right, where this woman comes to the house and is driven away in the most, in the most shameful way. But the first chapter seems to be doing pretty random things. There is this waiter who he thinks he has some special wisdom to explain life. Right? He's observing people around him and kind of talking about them. He's also telling us about a past relationship, or kind of quasi semi-relationship that he was perhaps on the verge of having. So what is the purpose of this first chapter? Right? What is it there for? What is it telling us? I think it's doing quite a few interesting things. We just sort of need to go through them a little more closely. It is telling us a lot of things about the narrator. Right now, because this is a first-person narrative, there is no, a helpful third-person narrator who will tell us about this person. Right? So nobody is there to describe this person to us, like a regular third-person narrative would have done. Right? They would have told us about him. They would have told us how old he is. What he does or doesn't do, what kind of a person he is, and so on. Yeah. But now here, since he is the one who is telling the story, he's not going to describe himself, no? Because he's telling the story. But it is important for us to know what this person is, what kind of a person the narrator is, because that is an important part of the story. So what do we get to know about this narrator from whatever he talks to us about in the first chapter? What can we, if we were detectives and we wanted to find out about this person?
He likes to visit the coffee house.
He likes to sit at the coffee house and
spends
spends.
people around him. And he also sometimes thinks about probabilities, etc. And we do realize that he's married now after the broke with Chad. And this one girl who sits on the same table, he and Chandra used to sit and notice that how a daily life is doing. And it feels like he and his Chandra relationship, mostly he talks a lot about her and his life. And he doesn't really talk so much about the family, but he talks about Vincent and how he finds Vincent very saint-like, and how he finds the words of wisdom whenever he talks to him.
that is, you're right. That is what happens here. But again, what can we, what can we infer about him?
He's avoidant about certain things.
He's
Avoidant about certain things.
okay. So
Like-
he's avoiding things. So he sits in the coffee house a lot of times, right? That's he's there a lot. What does it tell us?
That he could have been trying to avoid his house, he tries to be at something where he can be
Yeah.
alone.
He says that he's making up excuses just to come to the coffee house.
So he's making up excuses to come to the coffee house. Yeah. It tells us two things, no? It tells us A, that he has a lot of time. Right? Not everyone can just go and hang around in a coffee house at their whim. Right? Most of us have constraints. Adults usually have workplaces that they are answerable to. He, on the other hand, doesn't seem to have any of those constraints. Okay? So someone with a lot of free time on his hands, someone who is clearly quite disturbed. Yeah, that's quite evident that he is disturbed, right? There is something bothering him, and he seeks out the coffee house in the hope or as a way to avoid thinking about what is bothering him. This sort of obsessive, his obsession with Vincent, right? This kind of hope that Vincent, is this wise, seer figure who has answers to his problems, is another kind of, it's a reflection of that again, right? That internal disturbance. He is someone who is troubled, who is looking for answers, and is hoping someone will give him those answers. Right? And Vincent, for all, we really only have this guy's word for it. Right? He's the one who goes on telling us how all-knowing and how wise Vincent is. We don't really see any such any such thing ourselves, right? So it really is a sort of obsessive idea that the narrator has about Vincent. So he's looking for the clarity and wisdom that he himself lacks, right? And he's looking to find that in Vincent. So if you, how are we inferring? How are we getting this information? So look at page 2. He's been sitting there. They seem to know someone who simply sits there for so long must have 1,000 wheels spinning in his head. That's a really powerful image. 1,000 wheels spinning in your head. You are seriously disturbed. Right? There is something really bothering you. And you know these spinning wheels will not let a person be. Eventually, he'll be overwhelmed. Right? So he's on the verge of a breakdown. Right? He's not just disturbed. He seems to be on the verge of a breakdown, of a sort of mental collapse. Right? There's too much going on inside him. Yeah? So the novel opens with this, this information. Right? We are looking at a narrator who is overwhelmed by what has happened to him, right? So the novel opens at this moment of despair, this moment of crisis, and then will go on to unfold, right? So remember we've talked about plot and story and how you choose to structure the action, right? So here the novel could have opened with anything. It could have opened chronologically with a description of the family. That's how this nice happy family used to live together in this little house and so on and so forth, and then what happened. But no, it opens at this climactic moment, if you like, or certainly charged moment, if not climactic. And this, this moment, the novel then kind of loops back to it in the last couple of pages. Right? So this is here Vincent sitting in this coffee shop in the opening chapter, and then you come back exactly to this moment on the last page 113 of the book. Right? So the novel begins here as well as ends here. And in between, we are kind of taken to this long journey of the narrator's past, the narrator's story. Right? But this particular moment is a charged one. Right? It is the culmination of everything that he has experienced. He's spends an inordinate amount of time there. Page 3, he's looking at this woman. Also you begin to see that his thoughts are occupied by women. Right? Because he's looking at this woman who's sitting there, noticing her very carefully. He has noticed her several times in the past as well. Right? This woman makes him, draws him to thoughts of an earlier girlfriend. It also draws him to thoughts of his wife. Yes, so there is, we can sense that women are going to be central in this story, right? Because of his kind of the way his attention gravitates, towards them. So he's observing this woman. He's desperate. He says, "Today I've been sitting in coffee house longer than ever before. I'm desperate for a sign of some sort. Part of me longs to speak to Vincent, but what if his words hint at the one thing I don't want to hear?" Now, we don't know what this thing is. We don't yet know what this thing is. By the time we come to the end of the novel, we can guess. We can make a fair guess at what this thing is that he is afraid of, this thing that he does not want to hear. Right? This girl who he notices so carefully, she's sitting there, a lock of hair has drifted onto her cheek as she writes. The girl is here at this time at least thrice a week. Sometimes there's a young man who joins her for coffee and they leave together. It's the same table at which Chitra and I used to meet. Yes, so you can see the layers starting to form. Right? At present, he clearly spends a great deal of time at the coffee house. To the extent that he knows the routines of the people who come there, or at least this particular person who comes there. He also has a past memory of the coffee house, right? His ex-girlfriend, Chitra. So this, a constant kind of, debate within his own self. Should I reach out to Vincent? Should I talk to him? Should I ask him? Will he give me clarity? Will he, tell me what's going on? So this is very much a person on edge, right? You can imagine he's sitting in the coffee house, ostensibly, relaxing, watching the world go by. But there's a storm. There's a storm within him, right? And he's very, very kind of perturbed and. He recalls a conversation, one of many with Chitra. So Chitra is someone who works, perhaps for an NGO or certainly an organization for women, right, which tries to support women who need help. I'll just read this bit and see. Let's see what, if anything, it tells us about our narrator. So Chitra works for a women's welfare organization. Page 6. and would gradually grow incensed as she told me about her day. The things she said about men I took as applying to myself. I could only sit there mute, feeling vaguely guilty. She might say, how could you break her arm simply because the tea was not to her taste? So here, of course, the you is not the narrator, but she's talking about incidents that she has witnessed, right? Where incidents of domestic violence, women being kind of beaten and bullied for the smallest of things, right? Or do you kill your wife because she forgot to leave the key with the neighbor? Right? So these are the things she is having to deal with, at this organization. These are the things she sees, and she is outraged by them. Right? She can't contain her anger. I knew that tea shouldn't lead to a broken arm or a forgotten key to a murder. It wasn't about the tea or the key. The last strands of a relationship can snap from a single glance or moment of silence. But how was I to explain this to her? So his, in contrast to Chitra's very clear anger and outrage, his is a different sort of response, right? Like, I know this is not right, but, there is a but. Relationships are complex, and you don't know what can go wrong at what time. And a little later, when he decides to stop meeting Chitra again, the last time that they met. Basically, he doesn't take any decision. It's just that one day, whatever there was between us vanished. I stopped going to coffee house at our usual time, and instead began going in the evenings, and that was it. We never saw each other again. Now here again, it's a peculiar way to, it's a strange way to break up with someone, right? I mean, he's not really broken up. He just stops going. He just starts avoiding her, right? And stops going, and they Chitra clearly sort of gets the message, and they don't meet again. I clearly remember what he spoke about the last time we met. Right? So what was it that made him take this step? She told me about a woman who had been turned out of her house in the middle of the night by her mother-in-law. While the woman shivered outside, her husband and his parents and sister all slept warm in their blankets. She had sat there hearing her husband snore through the window. At dawn, she hid her shame from the milkman by pretending she was waiting for the milk. Chitra's voice grew in shrillness as she described the woman's plight. I'll make sure that husband and mother-in-law see the inside of a jail, she swore. I must discuss the case with our lawyer before he leaves for home. And got up, she says goodbye. It's all hazy now when I try to remember. If I knew then that it was over. I do recall though that I sat there quietly for a while after she left. I didn't show up at our usual time the next day or ever after. Chitra may have asked Vincent about me, I don't know. She basically got the message. So what is, again, not much is told to us, right, by way of information. This is not a narrator who is very clear about his actions. He's telling us. He's telling us that he would have these conversations with Chitra, after which he would sort of feel uncomfortable. He wouldn't say anything, but he certainly did not have that kind of clarity that she did, right? That clarity and that anger that she had, he did not share with you. And he describes to us their last conversation. So now, again, as readers, what are we to make of this? What are we to infer?
That a very unaccountable person, like he doesn't face any responsibility for his actions, and he tries to avoid all the problems just by avoiding them and not solving them. And he also not has courage to actually share what he feels, so he just stops meeting the person he wants to ask.
Okay, so yeah, okay, someone who doesn't have the courage to articulate his thoughts and feelings, right? He chooses the strategy of avoidance. But what is it particularly about these episodes, about the things that Chitra talks about, that make him so uncomfortable? And also that, you know, she is not the one for him. After this I knew that she was not the, what is it he says? I try to remember if I knew then that it was over. Right? So there is something that he kind of gauges. What could it be? All she is doing is talking about the women that she supports.
For some reason, it makes him feel guilty, like which was saying in the beginning. He feels bad about what she's talking about.
And why does he feel guilty? So Chitra is talking about the violence, the everyday violence to be found in families. Yes? The everyday violence against women. I mean, she's talking about some extreme cases, but we do know. I mean, it's common knowledge, no, that violence is a very normal part of family life. Violence against children, violence against women, violence against the elderly, even. Violence against whoever is vulnerable, basically. Right? So what about it makes him so uncomfortable? Why does he not want to hear this? What is it that tells him, she's not the person for me, she's not the one for me?
Maybe it reminds him of the violence he sees in his house.
It takes him to an uncomfortable place. It makes him think about things that make him uncomfortable. Things that he does not have the courage to think through fully. So, he's a character who is very difficult to, pin down. His contours are very blurry. He's not, he doesn't have, I mean, the reason that is the case is because he lacks that kind of clarity himself. Right? So somebody like Chitra, with that passion, with that commitment, with that clarity that she has, is like a slap on this person's face. Right? Because he's someone who is afraid of thinking with that kind of clarity. And the situations she is talking about, families, and trying to find accountability in families, trying to expose the lies and the violence that exists in families. These are all ideas that make him very, very uncomfortable. So in Shanbag, another of his novels came out in translation some time back, called Sakina's Kiss. And there too, the male character, the male protagonist, tends to be a very, very wishy-washy kind of person. Someone who just doesn't have the courage of his convictions. And I think it's meant to be a comment on contemporary contemporary maleness, like the men of this generation, who are not, they are not perhaps like their fathers or grandparents' generation, right? Not sort of very, I mean, they may not be completely insensitive and sort of completely chauvinistic, but they do not. They also do not have the courage or the clarity to really stand up for things they believe in. So there is this kind of crisis almost of maleness, of masculinity. So all his character, I mean all the female characters are very kind of forthright, very strong, with a very clear vision. The men are kind of dithering, wishy-washy. They sit on the fence, and this narrator is a sort of prime example of somebody like that, right? Somebody afraid to take a stand, somebody afraid to think things through with clarity, somebody afraid to take sides, and all of that becomes evident in the next chapter when the uncle's friend comes to visit, right? So it's, I mean, if you just picture that scene, there is this woman who has come to your house bearing a gift, right? She's made something for this person who, I mean, nothing is spelled out, but we assume. One of the most amazing things about this novel is the number of things that are not said, right? The unsaid things that you just assume, things that you infer. And that, I think that it is in that way that it comes closest to the interactions within families. So much that is important in relationships is unsaid. Right? Expectations that we are supposed to live by. They may not be spelled out for us, but they are there. Right? They are unsaid, but they are powerful, nevertheless powerful. So there are, in this novel, a lot of these silences, a lot of gaps, a lot of unsaid things. And the uncle's girlfriend, right? We assume, and the family assumes that this was a woman he was once close to, someone with whom he doesn't want to continue his relationship, and who he is now treating in this terrible, shameful way, right? Refusing to even come and talk to her. And how the entire family kind of rallies behind him, right? The entire family kind of stands up, gangs up against this woman. So the main sort of actors are the mother and the sister, right? They are the ones who are actually talking to her. But I mean, just visualize it. There are these 4 men or 3 men quietly sitting inside. They can hear everything, but nobody has the guts to actually step out and say something, to intervene. So it's a novel about silences, right? It's a novel about the unsaid. So the exploration of the family then, the family as a unit, right? And we can see it's a very close-knit family. But what is the basis of this family's closeness? Well, that's what starts to become clear in the second chapter. So the central figure, as he begins, chapter 2, ours is a joint family, we live in the same house. Malti is back, she's left her husband now, so she's back with us. It's natural to ask, I suppose, why the 6 of us should live together. Right? So he's asking the same question. What is it that keeps us together? What is it that knits us together? The central figure in our household is my Chikkappa, Venkatchala, my father's younger brother and the family's sole earning member. Right? So this centrality is awarded quite openly, quite blatantly to earning power. Right? So the most respected person in the family is the person who is the breadwinner. Right? No qualms about that, no questions about Okay. Because he is the breadwinner, everything, his needs are paramount. His meals, his preferences, his conveniences are of supreme importance to us all. The harder he toils, the better it is for us. He is unmarried, and we fuss over him such that he is bound to wonder what additional comfort marriage can bring at his age. He receives all the domestic privileges according to the earning male of the family. So what's the answer? Why this respect given to the uncle? Because he earns. This is not respect coming from, a sense of admiration for his qualities. This is respect simply on the basis of his position as breadwinner. Look at the, so this narrator who sounds so kind of vague and lost so often is also, there are times when he can surprise you with his, with his sharpness. Right? It's very important for us that he is able to work hard. Right? So we have to support him and his ability to work hard. Right? The harder he toils, the better it is for us. So the care and the respect that is given to the uncle has actually nothing to do with the uncle. It has to do with the fact that he can earn more, he can earn better. It is important that he should not feel the need to get married. Again, so that his focus does not deviate, so he doesn't start, so he doesn't transfer his attention as well as his money elsewhere, right? So it's very important to keep, to look after him, to keep him, to keep all his needs satisfied, so he does not move away. So there is this shrewdness, yes, this very canny sort of calculating. It's a clever calculation, right? Again, nothing to do with love, respect, affection, none of that. It's pure calculation, economic calculation. Yes, that is why it is important to keep him happy, to keep him satisfied. And this incident which he chooses to begin with, once again, why begin with this incident? He's starting to tell us about his family. He could have begun anywhere. But he chooses to begin here. He chooses to open the introduction to his family with this, with this icky, with this very terrible, horrible sort of incident. So this woman who has come, how the family reacts, right? How the mother's, the mother is always hyper aware, right? So he says how the mother actually noticed this woman even while she was just waiting outside, right? So her antenna are always alert. Could this be a source of potential trouble? Could this be someone who takes away the earning member of our family? So as this woman comes and introduces herself, it's not hard for me, page 13, it's not hard for me to imagine the thoughts that must have raced through Amma's mind during that brief conversation. Right? So he's perfectly tuned. So the whole family is, they are completely on the same page when it comes to what is best for them. Right? So they unite, they all unite without discussing it, without having to say it. They all know that this woman is an intruder who must be dealt with, who must be driven away. Just like the ants. Right? So just as the whole family had united to get rid of the ants, here too the whole family unites, immediately to get rid of this intruder. So while this was happening, we, the three men of the house, were sitting at the dining table over our breakfasts, listening to the exchange at the door. Malti and Anita were in the kitchen, also within earshot, right? So this is like the entire family is sort of sitting around and, can you be quiet, please? You're so loud. If you want to carry on a conversation, why don't you leave? I can't hear my own self because of your voice constantly. The gift that she has brought, this sort of offering, right, of the uncle's favorite curry, and again the ugliness of the scene, right, the spilling of that curry, it's now on the floor, and the effect it has on the woman, right? She completely breaks. She calls out to the uncle, using a name. An affectionate name that she has used for him, but none of that has makes any response. The woman had not abused us. She had not come here to pick a fight. We were thrown off balance by her love for one of us, and so we tore into her with such vengeance that she collapsed on the ground, sobbing. Amma and Malati called her a beggar, a whore, and it was clear from the disbelief on her face that she had never been spoken to in this manner. Perhaps she waited because she was certain that Chikkappa would come to her aid. That must have been Amma's worst fear too, right? So the hope that the woman has is the family's greatest fear, right? That Chikkappa's loyalties might change, and that would mean a great change for them. Right? I had never imagined Malati and Amma to be capable of such cruelty. They were like dogs protecting their territory. Again, that's one of those moments, when the narrator is able to see the situation and articulate it with razor-sharp clarity. Right? They were like dogs protecting their territory. Right? This is ours, and we have to protect it. And in order to maintain all of this, we have to save this man, Chikkappa, from going over to someone else. All that woman had wanted to see was Chikkappa once. But these two spelled her with their words. They kept at it as she sobbed there sitting on the ground. So, at some level, I mean, the violence of the sheer cruelty of their response is understandable because of the enormity of what is at stake. Right? I mean, for them, this woman is not just a visitor. Right? What does she represent? She represents the end of their comfortable lifestyle. Or at least that is how they think of it. Right? Once Chikkappa gets married, he's not going to think about us, he's not going to support us, he's going to, right? This is all, it's a fear they have in their mind. Right? But kind of strengthened by that fear, because they feel they stand to lose so much, they are able to act in the harshest possible way. Right? And they treat this woman the way they do. So Chikkappa, no sign of him. He does not. He doesn't come out. He's just sitting. Even when she calls out to him, he doesn't respond. Anita did not participate in the events of that morning. She had been inside the house and she felt that an injustice had been done to the woman. But does being just necessarily entail shooting oneself in the foot? Even in the flush of their victory, Amma and Malati noticed Anita's dissent. It's an unwritten rule that all members come to the family's aid when it is threatened. Anita had broken that rule. She should not have. Okay? We'll stop here, but this figure of Anita, the wife of the narrator, is a contrast, right? even though this has been an arranged marriage, Anita is someone who resembles the girlfriend he had had earlier, right? Someone who has, someone who has a vision, someone who has a moral fiber, right? Someone who has a spine. So Anita has kind of shown herself to be different from the rest of the family. And that is not something, that is something that would never be accepted. We will wind up, I think, our discussion in the next class. So please read the entire novel before you come to the next class, which is on Monday now, okay? On Saturday, you only have the tute.
Lakshmi.